Hi, this is Ken and Michelle Bass.
And you're listening to the Resilient Parenting Podcast. Today is the start of a new season. Actually, it's not. It's just a new month, but it feels like a new season. Yesterday was so hot.
How hot was it? Oh, sorry, was that my cue? I'm sorry. How hot was it? It was so hot.
Oh, sometimes it physically hurts.
It was so hot, I snapped my fingers and a fire started.
Oh, that could have been yesterday. Today, though, I had to wear a sweater when we went outside because it was so cold. How cold was it? So cold that I had to wear a sweater.
Yesterday, we were the sweaters. So hot.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to follow you. But, you know, it made me think about, because we are in a new month, and it made me think about years ago when I was younger, my dad would say, time flies, but it goes even faster as you get older. So my question is that true, Ken?
Yes, because it's a new month after today.
You didn't get my joke.
Oh, I see what you did. How old am I? So old I don't get the jokes about the old guy.
That's because you're usually making the jokes.
Oh, I am a joke.
Oh,
okay.
You are not a joke. Everyone who knows and loves you knows that you're not a joke.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's stop. And you know what else isn't a joke?
What?
The next episode coming up next.
Today we're talking with Jane Zink, the Deputy Director of the Idaho Association of the Education of Young Children. It's a mouthful there.
It is.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here and all that.
Sure. So I'm the Deputy Director of this organization, and Idaho AEYC is the premier organization for supporting early childhood professionals in Idaho and advocating on behalf of parents with young children. And our goal is that all children have a space and a place in Idaho where they thrive.
So thanks for joining us, Jane. I know that you are involved in a few different things, like you're a Strengthening Families trainer. Can you share a little bit more about what your expertise is?
Sure. So I've been working with the Strengthening Families Protective Factor Framework for over 20 years, supporting parents with strength-based strategies to help them realize their strengths and become the leaders in their family. Also, I'm a HOPE champion. HOPE stands for Healthy Outcomes from Positive Experiences, and this is another strengths-based framework that supports parents, especially parents of young children.
Why does everything sound so hard to say?
It does sound very hard to say. How about we talk about empathy and compassion and how that helps families be strong?
I love that.
Okay.
So where should we start?
Well, let's just start about what empathy is. Like, in your opinion, if you've heard that term before, what do you think it is, empathy?
Feeling for others.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
How about you, Michelle?
I actually use empathy a lot in my work, and so it is feeling like being next to someone in their pain, feeling it with them, and not from the sideline.
Right. It's like respecting both someone's feelings and their suffering and their experience at the same time, right?
And understanding.
And it begins early in childhood. Like you can begin to see it 18 months, children who might get upset when you get upset, or if their doll falls off the counter and somebody picks it up and they might be upset that their doll is fallen down and pat and comfort it, right? And as we get older, our kind of ability to empathize with others grows, and then as compassion is demonstrated within our family, we learn that compassion is empathy plus action, those two things together. And then we grow in our ability to understand and support and empathize with each other. And it is until a little bit older, till kids are maybe 8 or 9, where they can actually have that experience of kind of taking another person's perspective or walking in their shoes. And so kind of understanding that trajectory of empathy in a child can, it's a developmental trajectory, and that can help us as parents have appropriate expectations for children.
So I have a question for you. Are children born with empathy?
I actually don't know the answer to that. Sorry. They have, I think that all children have the capacity to learn empathy.
So yes, definitely they need to be taught empathy.
I wanted to interject something. You talked about learning empathy, and you were talking about being taught empathy. I go back to that classic line from South Pacific, the musical, which you must be taught to carefully hate. So a child is born without this, hate within them. Are they already automatically born with empathy in them, or they have to be taught that also?
Well, I think everybody has the capacity for learning, right, from your environment, because when you're born, of course, your brain is just partially developed, and it develops in response to your environment. So if you are hearing a lot of language, the language centers in your brain develop, right, more robustly. Or if you're seeing compassion, that supports the compassion parts of your brain that work on empathy and connection and compassion, right? Sometimes we call that social emotional learning, right? So when we're talking about being able to name feelings and talking about feelings and not judging children's feelings and giving them space to experience their feelings, all these things support a child feeling valued for who they are and not for necessarily for what they do. And that then supports the development of a compassionate individual over their lifespan.
It reminds me of a video, and you'll remember this one. It's a video of a birthday party, and I don't know how old the little boy is, maybe 4, but he has a piñata that is Spider-Man.
Oh.
And he's supposed to break this open, and he stops and he just hugs Spider-Man and cries.
He doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to, and I was like, aw. And it's just like a moment of that empathy of him saying, no, this is another person that I care about, and I don't want to hurt. I don't want them to hurt.
It's like the beginnings, right? It's the beginnings of understanding. So children often, like with toys, they assign human characteristics to them, right? We see that all the time in imaginary play and friend play. So, for example, let's say a child is building a tower and it's tall, and they put a duck on top and the duck falls off, and they might cry because they think that duck got hurt, right? Bonk, bonk, or whatever they say. And it's like, so it's a matter of, it's a complex thing that we're learning, right? What has physical feelings, what doesn't have physical feelings. I think all this shapes the way we kind of understand the perspective, and shapes our perspective, and also what we don't have to feel sorry for, right? Because eventually we learn that when your train falls off the train track, the train actually doesn't get hurt.
Right.
It's just fallen off the train track and we can put it back, but it doesn't hurt the same way it would feel if you fell off your tricycle. So it's just a process of learning and supporting, right? And some kids, I think, have a very natural tendency towards empathy, just like some kids are very, very active and some kids aren't so active. And so some kids are working at kind of becoming less sensitive in some ways, right?
Right.
Because they don't need to cry when their doll falls out of the bed.
Right.
But a lot of the empathy, adults, I'll just go right to adults. Adults sometimes confuse sympathy with empathy and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think that we confuse compassion and empathy and what our role is as parents. For example, empathy, part of being a parent is empathizing with what your child is going through and kind of putting your feelings slightly to the side. So, here's an example. You're in a hurry, you're trying to get out of the grocery store, your 2-year-old is melting. What is your gut reaction? what emotions would you have you felt?
If it was
in that?
our 2-year-old that was
Embarrassing.
doing
you might feel embarrassed. What else? Panic. What else? Frustration, maybe anger, right? Shame, all of these things, right? And so the challenge as parents then is to try to be able to step aside. What do you think that 2-year-old is feeling?
What you're feeling?
And what do you think what you think your child is feeling in that moment?
Frustrated,
overwhelmed, angry, right? And so the challenge is to try to empathize with that child, to say, I know you're feeling angry, I know you're feeling frustrated, and then use what you know about your child to help move through that process of managing their emotions, or coaching them, like, we just need to, once we get through this line, we'll be on our way home to see daddy, or whatever. Like, so how can you instead of diving into your own emotions at that time, instead relate to the emotions of that child and coach them through it, so that you can successfully move on and through to the next steps.
And I think that's important to also think about children who maybe come from hard places, who maybe didn't have the safety to be able to learn empathy and to see it in action. I know that, brain development and, the different areas of the brain, empathy is part of that. But if they're in that survival part of their brain, they're not able to access that as often. And so I know some parents who, maybe we have someone who's raising their grandchild, or, maybe this is adoption, or however it is, where maybe you weren't there in the beginning, and trying to help teach them the empathy and to show them empathy. Is there anything that you would say to parents that are dealing with this challenge?
Sure. I think that one tagline we have is that a connected child is a protected child. So anything that you can do to stay and be connected and keep offering yourself, right? Because even though, like, we make a bid for affection, as the Gottmans say, and even if it's not received, like, the more we can keep bidding, because we're adults and we don't have to shut down. We can choose not to shut down when we're trying to connect with a child. I think it's being able to connect with that child, and as much as we can understand them, and try to come from a place using our adult brains about what we imagine they're feeling. Like, try to come from that place and to work through. I think it's really important too to be active listeners. And, like, here's another scenario for a person who's older. Let's say you have a teenager, and your teenager says to you, or, I feel like I'm really ugly. What is your gut response to respond to them?
Tell them they're not ugly.
Yeah.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with reassuring, but it does have the effect of, like, shutting down the conversation, right? So, like, another way that we can do that is to just pause at that impulse, and instead of say, oh my gosh, you're the most beautiful person on the planet, both inside and out, all those things that we know are true, we could say something like, tell me more.
Right.
And then that person, it's amazing. Those 3 magic words bring out so much information from people, like, tell me more what you're feeling. Because until we really address and understand what they're feeling, we can't really help them, like, through it, right? As you were saying, both, stand with them in their feelings and their experience. And so that's an effective and easy thing to remember. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
Tell me more.
Because what we think might be the problem may be far off the target. As you're saying, tell me more, it may have nothing to do with their looks. It may have something completely different to do with just how they're feeling about themselves as a person.
Sure. It might be something that happened on the bus.
Yeah.
It might be something they saw online. It might be, we don't have any idea, and the only way we can know is to get information from them. And even when kids pause, maybe they'll tell you a little bit, and you can say, oh, tell me, like what else? Tell me more.
Why do you think this?
Yeah, or just tell me more, like, super open-ended, so they
Help
don't have
me
to
understand.
justify anything.
Yeah.
And sometimes they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, because there's an awful lot under there that they are processing verbally and through their experience. And when they don't feel the judgment or that stopper of reassurance, and it's kind of
It's us trying to make
It's
us feel better by making them feel better faster.
Yeah, it's like counterintuitive, though. You think, oh, I'm just going to reassure, but reassurance is actually a way to shut down the conversation, but that we really need to be opening up. And then we have to be able to open it up, and then we have to be able to join them there in that whatever we're hearing from them, which may be anger, it may be despair, it may be self-doubts.
And that's a part of active listening.
Yes.
So not listening to respond, listening to understand, and, you know, giving them an opportunity to express themselves. I mean, as they're talking about it, that might be the first time they're processing it.
Right.
And then realizing, oh, wow, okay, like this is deeper than I thought it was, and to help them. And that's another opportunity for connection, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a kind of a system called emotion coaching, or this idea of emotion coaching, where kids have an emotion. We use our active listening skills. I mean, easy, like let's say someone comes home and they're very angry at a teacher or something that happened in school, right? And sometimes our instinct is like, you know, your mama bear claws come out and you're ready to call the principal and say something.
Who are you?
But in another way, like we could use our tell me more, we could learn more, we could say, what did you think? What might you do next time? Or let's talk about it later when you're like, let's help you calm down. Let's breathe in. Let's go for a walk, and then revisit that later to say, like, how could you handle this next time? I mean, that's another option to solving the problem for them, because compassion really doesn't mean saving people. It means entering into their space and helping them find the resources and supports that they need. And scaffolding, if they're a child, of course, scaffolding their resources, because children need support in ways that adults don't.
The tell me more aspect of it all, you could kind of take that way down and use it with the infant also. Without, they're not going to be able to tell you more, but refocusing your brain as to what's going on with them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, tell me more. And I mean, maybe that would help some parents kind of cue into their infant, what their infant is trying to communicate, because they are communicating, right? All behavior is communication. And I just have a brand new grandbaby.
Congratulations.
And yeah, she's just like 5 days old, but she's communicating, and it is difficult. I mean, if you've ever had a newborn, it's difficult to know exactly what it's like. You kind of have your tried and true 3 or 4 things. But yeah, tell me more. That would be, it's like opening up your own energy in your own space, right? To let that being communicate with you, which is just beautiful.
Yeah. I'll have to remember those 3 words. They could probably use that in your own personal relationships too.
No, I have a feeling I'm going to hear this.
See what happens.
Hear this. Yeah, tell me more, Ken. Really, I dare you. Tell me more.
I'm shutting down.
I'm just kidding. You know, something else that I think, I know I have done this before, and I think to a certain extent it's good, but then, well, okay. So if there's a situation and my child comes and talks about a situation, sometimes I may say, I wonder what was going on with the other person. I wonder what the other person was going through, or, and, kind of modeling a little bit of that empathy, like what could have been happening to them that day. I wonder if they were having a bad day. And I also know that sometimes your kid does not in that moment want you to be doing that. They want you to listen and to see them and acknowledge and validate what they're experiencing, in order to be able to be probably regulated enough to look at it from another point of view. But I have done that and heard it later from my child, like, yeah, I don't know what their childhood was like, or what their home life is like. So like, not necessarily excusing the behavior, but just having a little more glimpse into maybe the why behind why other people, respond or act a certain way.
And I think that this is all learning that's scaffolded over a long time with children, right? And so as they're ready to hear those things and ready to support them, we can kind of layer it on in a more sophisticated way. So even if we are talking to a child and we shut down the conversation by reassuring or by trying to solve problems, like, the door is never completely closed. We can always kick it open. We can always come back to our child later and say, I've been thinking about that conversation we had, and I really just want to hear more. Like, my first instinct was to say, you really are beautiful, and now I want to hear more. So can we do that again?
So it's not too late.
It's never too late to open the door, to reopen the door, and to try again. I mean, that's kind of the mantra of parenting, right? If we just try again, we start again. If we've made a mistake or if we've missed an opportunity.
Yeah, and being honest about it, I think, is any chance we have to show our kids that we're human and that sometimes we step in it and we acknowledge it and then try again, I think is a opportunity to teach empathy as well.
Yeah. I think it's Carl Rogers who says that our goal is unconditional positive regard, meaning that we love children unconditionally for who they are. We don't put any parameters around it, and our love doesn't change. And I mean, it's a lifelong challenge, right? Because we are human and we make mistakes, but that doesn't mean we can't keep our eye on the prize and talk to our kids when we miss the mark.
Yeah.
I mean, in Darkness to Light, which is and that organization is the expert in child abuse and neglect, sexual abuse prevention. They say the goal is relentless compassion. So we always have compassion, and we always keep it at the forefront of what we're doing. And again, that doesn't mean saving children. It doesn't mean bailing them out of the consequences of their actions. It means being with. That's what they say in Circle Security. Being with is so critical. And as parents, it's difficult because it not only we have to witness the struggle of our children, but we have to struggle alongside them.
And show self-compassion so that they also have compassion for themselves as they're showing compassion and empathy for others.
Yeah, because there's a time when we all need to forgive ourselves for the things that we've done as parents, where we've fallen short, but also we can celebrate the things that we do well, because we're not, in our culture, encouraged to necessarily celebrate the things that we've done well. Instead, we are usually talking about the things that we've done wrong, and other people are usually talking about the things that we've done wrong. And nobody needs to be reminded of their shortcomings as a parent, because guess what? We're all acutely aware of our shortcomings as a parent. But what we need is to reinforce with each other, like, the things that we are doing well, and any kind of opportunity that we have with other parents to comment on and support what we see as a loving, nurturing, healthy, happy relationship, we should be doing that with each other.
Absolutely.
We can notice when we see parents either having great experiences with their kids or struggling with their kids. We cannot not ignore it. That is, like, critical. When you're in the grocery store and you see someone and their 2-year-old's in the cart and they're talking to them they're talking to them or helping them or talking about the things on the shelves, like, that's our opportunity. That's our calling to say, what you're doing here is making such a big difference in the lives of this kid, right? Or if you're at Winco bagging and sometimes mommies or daddies let their kids bag, that's the time to say, what you're doing, this time together bagging these groceries is so good for your, like, I'm so happy to see you engaged in this way with your child, right? Or if you see someone whose child is flopped on the floor of Walmart and they are they're doing their best and they're not losing their patience. It's like, that is the time to say, you are doing such a good job, because that kid's brain is overloaded because they're 2, right? It's just overloaded. Like, maybe you could carry their groceries to the car or something. This is our opportunity as a collective to, like, step up and comment on the things that build this social and emotional competence in families.
Can people contact you guys?
Absolutely. Please contact us. You can go to our website, which is IdahoAEYC.org, which is probably going to be in the show notes.
It will definitely be in the show notes. I also have a really great video from Brené Brown about the difference between empathy and sympathy. Hey, you want a sandwich? You'll get that when you watch it. It's a really good demonstration of the difference between the two.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. I didn't feel too fluent, but I hope it was all right.
You? It's not about you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Tell me more. This podcast is brought to you by the Idaho Children's Trust Fund.